Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking closely at just one source. An audio excerpt actually makes some pretty big claims. Our task here, our deep dive, is really to unpack what this source says was found regarding former President Obama's birth certificate. And importantly, how they present it all. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, it's quite something how the source frames its story. It's definitely a sensitive topic, lots of noise around it already. But like you said, our focus isn't on saying if it's true or false. We're just analyzing the material itself, understanding the claims within this one source, looking at the presentation.
Exactly, a crucial point for this deep dive. And this source, well, it doesn't waste any time, jumps right in. It says straight up that the birth certificate has been, and I'm quoting, proven a forgery and fabricated. That's quite a way to start.
It really is. It sets a very powerful tone, doesn't it? By just declaring it like that right at the beginning, it kind of frames everything that follows, suggesting it's already a done deal before you even hear the details.
Yeah.
Very different from how, a standard investigation might be presented.
And who do they say reached this conclusion?
Well, the source is specific. It mentions law enforcement officials and forensic investigators.
Right. They name names. Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his lead investigator, Mike Solo.
Mm-hmm. And it adds that they, plus two other experts on two continents, all apparently decided the document is not authentic.
So why do you think it's important that the source specifically flags them as law enforcement and forensic investigators? What does that do?
That's definitely a rhetorical strategy.
Mhm.
Using those titles, law enforcement, forensic, it immediately tries to give the claims a sense of, well, authority and credibility. It suggests a proper evidence-based process, grounding these pretty extraordinary claims in figures who sound official.
Makes sense. And then the source says these investigators are trying to take it further, seeking to bring the matter to the federal government.
Yes, that's the next step they mention. But interestingly, the source immediately follows that by saying the mainstream media has pretty much ignored it.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that kind of framing before in certain contexts.
It's quite common, actually. Pointing out supposed media silence is a tactic some sources use to imply they hold a special, maybe suppressed, truth. It can create a bit of an us versus them feeling, encouraging listeners to see the source as the brave one, telling the real story.
Got it. So beyond the big claim of forgery, how does the source say they actually, figured this out? What's the evidence presented?
Right, this is where they get into the specifics. They talk about 5 points of forgery. The core idea presented is that certain details, dates, signature lines, even tiny things like X marks were supposedly lifted, brought over from another birth certificate.
Another birth certificate.
Yeah, one that was apparently dated only 16 days apart. The source uses the phrase copied and pasted to describe it, like digital manipulation.
Copied and pasted. Okay. Do they give an example?
They do mention things like alleged subtle misalignments. Text or data points on the document that supposedly don't quite line up as they should, presented as forensic proof.
And the source includes a quote from the investigator, Mike Zillow, that seems to narrow the focus.
Exactly. It quotes Zillow saying, "We don't know if Obama is a natural-born citizen or not." And then Zillow apparently clarifies that is not the issue. The issue is that the document is an elaborate forgery.
That is quite a specific clarification.
It is. It's strategically interesting, isn't it? By saying citizenship isn't the issue, the source tries to frame their claim as purely about document authenticity. It shifts the focus, at least in their telling, from a potentially broader political debate to what sounds like a more technical forensic one.
And to kind of boot that forensic claim, the source mentions investigators elsewhere agreeing.
Correct. It states that investigators in the U.S. and Italy came to the exact same conclusions. That suggests independent international verification.
Which adds weight, presumably.
It definitely aims to. That idea of cross-continental agreement makes the findings seem more robust, harder to dismiss. Oh, and the source also adds that Sheriff Arpaio is holding out on some more sensitive information.
The classic, there's more to come.
Precisely. It creates suspense, suggests even stronger proof is waiting in the wings.
And finally, the source points people towards a full press conference online if they want all the nitty-gritty details on these forgery points.
Yeah, a place for the full argument as they present it.
Okay, so taking all this in, what does this mean for you, listening right now? When you hear these kinds of claims, it's worth thinking not just about what they're saying, but really paying attention to how they're saying it. Consider those rhetorical choices we talked about, the upfront definitive statements, the appeal to specific authorities, the narrative about media silence, the promise of more secrets. How does that packaging affect how you receive the information?
Yeah, it really brings up a fundamental question, doesn't it? In this world just flooded with information, how do you evaluate claims? Especially claims like these, which come bundled with very specific, seemingly detailed proof attributed to seemingly official people, and set against this backdrop of supposed media neglect, just like this source does. It's really an invitation, I think, to engage critically and thoughtfully with pretty much everything you come across.